There is a version of today that most Taurus horoscopes will completely miss, and it starts with a question. What happens when the same message shows up in your chart twice in one day? Not once, but twice, as if the universe wanted to make absolutely sure you heard it. That is exactly what is unfolding for you today, and by the end of this, you will understand why it matters more than almost anything else happening in your sky right now. Let us start with the bigger story, because there is a lot of movement happening around you this year that gives today its real weight. Since Uranus began moving through your financial sector, you have likely felt a certain instability around money that does not feel entirely yours. Other people's decisions, a partner renegotiating, a family member restructuring, a business shifting its terms, keep forcing your hand. You did not ask for the recalibration, but here it is anyway. And there is a reason this particular cycle cuts so deep for you specifically. In your chart, Chiron also sits in Taurus, in that same house of income and resources. Uranus is asking for change. Chiron is asking you to look at an old wound around security. When those two show up together, it stops being a minor budget adjustment and starts feeling like a genuine identity shakeup around what safety even means to you. That is the long arc. The multi-year weather pattern sitting quietly underneath everything else today. Closer to the surface, today's moon is moving through Sagittarius, and in Western tropical astrology, that is a placement associated with mental sharpness and an appetite for solving exactly the kind of problem you have been avoiding. If there is a complicated situation you have been sidestepping for weeks, this lunar energy tends to favor tackling it rather than postponing it again. But here is what almost gets lost if you are only half paying attention. There is also a message today about consistency, and it is significant enough that it essentially repeats itself. As the moon moves into your career sector, the 10th house in Western astrology, the spotlight shifts toward your visibility and your reputation, not through some big dramatic announcement, but through quiet, reliable follow-through. A supervisor, a client, a teammate, someone is watching how steadily you show up, and that steadiness may open a door you did not expect. When a message about your reliability surfaces this clearly and echoes rather than fades, it is usually worth taking seriously. So here is where the chart starts telling one coherent story instead of several scattered ones. The Sagittarius moon gives you the mental clarity to finally face something you have been avoiding. The career shift asks you to let your consistency speak instead of a polished performance. And underneath both of those daily currents, the long-term Uranus and Chiron conversation about money keeps nudging you toward the same lesson from a different angle, that security built on other people's approval was never going to hold, and it might be time to build your own. Let us bring this into something more personal, starting with love. If honest words have been sitting on the tip of your tongue, today may test how you deliver them. The energy favors truth-telling, but there is a real risk of bruising someone if you let the words land too hard. The Sagittarius moon wants directness. Your task is softening the edge without losing the honesty. Picture it like handing someone a stone instead of throwing it, same weight, completely different impact. If you can manage that, there is a real possibility of ending the day lighter, maybe even enjoying a genuinely relaxed evening with the person you needed to talk to. You may have noticed a strange contradiction to a pull toward romantic honesty on one hand, and on the other, a nagging awareness that your usual routines feel slightly off today. That is worth naming rather than fighting. If your normal rhythm slips a little, there is no need to treat it as failure. Uncertainty, especially this week, seems to be part of the actual lesson rather than an obstacle to it. Now, about that career thread we touched on earlier, this is where it becomes something you can actually act on today. That quiet reliability the chart keeps highlighting is not asking you to perform. It is asking you to report. If you are in the middle of a project, a simple, clear update, what is done, What is next, where you could use support, tends to land better right now than any attempt to impress. People seem to be responding more to steadiness than spectacle at the moment. And this transit favors the version of you that just quietly delivers. There also seems to be some interesting news drifting in on the professional front today, the kind that might catch your attention and spark a little excitement. The guidance here is simple. Stay curious, but keep both feet on the ground until you have more information. Which brings us naturally to money, because that excitement can easily tip into premature decisions if you are not careful. On the financial side, today is not the day for dramatic moves. The bigger Uranus and Chiron story is still unfolding slowly in the background, and it does not need to be solved in a single afternoon. What it does need is your attention. If a shift in someone else's financial life is putting pressure on yours, resist the urge to make a rushed counter decision. Let today's clearer Sagittarius moon thinking help you observe the situation instead of reacting to it. Here is what actually makes today unusual, and it is easy to miss if you are moving through it too fast. The same core message, quiet consistency over flashy performance, is showing up in more than one area of your life at once, almost like the sky is repeating itself so you do not miss it. Most people will experience today as a handful of separate events: a work update, an honest conversation, a slightly off routine. But it is really one lesson wearing different outfits. The people or situations asking for your consistency, your groundedness, your calm follow through, they are not unrelated. They are the same invitation, showing up in your relationships, your career, and quietly, underneath it all, your relationship with your own resources too. If your stress levels start climbing today, that is a fair response to a day carrying this much underlying instruction. The advice here is refreshingly simple. Slow down, breathe, and do not punish yourself if your usual structure wobbles a bit. Some Vedic practitioners might suggest Saturn-related remedies, such as specific gemstones or mantras, for individuals whose birth charts show particular support for them, though this is never universal advice, since gemstone prescriptions in Vedic tradition require a full personal chart reading. What is safe and useful for everyone, though, is far simpler. Spending a few quiet minutes in nature, journaling through whatever feels unsettled, or simply naming your stress out loud to someone you trust can meaningfully soften today's tension. As for the day's supportive color, blue tends to align well with today's energy, and if you want to time anything important, the hours between 4 and 5 in the afternoon appear especially favorable. Turning toward home and the people close to you, that same theme of honest but gentle communication continues to matter. If travel plans with friends have gotten complicated, Tay favors simplifying rather than overcomplicating, fewer moving parts, clearer expectations, less room for miscommunication. Perhaps you have noticed that the people around you respond better when you are direct but warm, rather than either avoidant or blunt. That is not a coincidence today. It is the whole day's lesson playing out again in a slightly different room. If travel is on your mind at all this week, Tay favors simplicity over spontaneity to streamlining plans rather than adding complexity. And if you find yourself pulled toward quiet reflection rather than outward activity in the evening, that instinct is worth honoring. There is something almost meditative about a day that keeps repeating the same gentle instruction. Stop performing, start being consistent, and trust that steadiness is its own quiet form of power. So if you are looking for where to place your energy today, here is the shape of it. Choose honesty and love, but deliver it gently. Choose a clear, simple update at work instead of a grand gesture. Watch your money moves carefully rather than reactively. And when stress rises, let a short walk, a few written pages, or one honest conversation do more work than forcing your usual routine to hold. What makes today worth remembering is not one dramatic transit or one big prediction. It is the quiet repetition It is the quiet repetition of a single, simple truth, arriving from more than one direction at once, almost as if your chart wanted to make sure you did not miss it. Consistency, honesty, and groundedness shown, not announced. If you carry just that much into tomorrow, today will have done exactly what it came to do.